I bought Nikon's smallest and lightest Z-line camera, the Z30, and I've had it for about 2 months now. So let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly with this small little powerhouse. Welcome to the bright side. The Nikon Z30 was released about 3 years ago now, and is Nikon's smallest camera in the Z lineup. Running through the specs, we have a 20.9 megapixel APS-C sensor with the XP6 image processor with Nikon's awesome color science. On the back, it sports a 3-inch touchscreen monitor, which is variable angled, so you can bend and twist it all sorts of ways however you want, as if you're cosplaying as a Sony photographer. I could be wrong, but I believe that is a newer feature that Nikon chose to adopt only a few years ago with either the Z6 or 3, but it's a very welcomed adaptation for them to add it to the Z-line cameras, especially with this smaller Z30 with no EVF. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Having that variable angle screen allows you to not even worry about shooting at certain angles while still being able to see the shot that you're getting. No more blind firing, and thank God for that. For video specs, the Z30 can shoot up to 4K 30 and up to 125 minutes if plugged into a power source. If the camera is not plugged into a power source, then you're looking more realistically at 30 to 45 minutes for recording. But since the Z30 can record video while being plugged into a power source, for your streamers out there, this can also double as your webcam. Currently, I'm using the Z30 to record myself so you can see the quality right here now, and it's plugged into a power source on my counter, so I don't have to worry about the battery dying randomly. Usually for these types of videos, I record roughly about an hour, and using the Z30 for my last few videos, I haven't had any issues with the battery randomly draining. But enough of reading the specs off the brochure like I'm a used car salesman. Let's talk about what I love and hate about this camera. First, something that my Z5 doesn't have is animal and people detection modes. For the Z30, if you go into the settings menu, you can choose between animals and people if you're using autofocus. And those settings will tell the camera exactly what you want it to focus on if you're doing wildlife photography versus portraits. Before, without this feature, if I was in the park, wanted to take a picture of a bird or a squirrel, if I wasn't manual focusing, then I really would just have to rely on zone focusing or area focusing and just hope that I got the shot. But with the animal detection now, it's extremely useful for getting those types of shots. Along with those modes, eye detection has been improved tremendously compared to the older Z-line cameras like the Z5. On the Z5, even with the slightest amount of shadows or even low light spaces, eye detection is extremely spotty. But with the Z30, as long as you're even remotely close to looking at the camera, it'll immediately pick up on the eyes and focus directly on those. Even when you're looking around a little too much, maybe wandering away from the camera will quickly snap to focusing on your head instead of your eyes. And when you look back at the camera, it immediately locks back on to where it's supposed to be. That ensures that your subject remains in focus the entire time, and it's so quick with it that you don't even notice. Even though Nikon has moved on to the XP7 image processor, the Z30 still sports the XP6. It's still obviously a very good processor, and it's the one that Nikon chose to go with for their very successful comeback with their Z-line cameras. Plus, going with a processor that's just a few years old now helps to keep the price down a little bit, which I'm definitely in favor for. This isn't a new thing with the Z30 specifically, but the menu system with Nikon cameras, hands down one of my favorites and the reason I love this system so much. Their main menu is divided into pretty clear sections, being like photo settings and video settings and a few others. And from there, you can quickly and efficiently find the exact setting you're wanting to change and get that done as quick as possible. There's no going through section after section after section just to be able to change what focus mode you're on. Even with the quick menu of Nikon's eye menu, it's just a click of a button on the back of the camera, and from there is probably the most important settings that you'll ever need to change. It's super fast, super easy to use, and I don't know why more cameras don't adopt this system. That's probably one of the biggest gripes that I have with like video games nowadays. Even with Call of Duty, Just being able to change an attachment on a weapon, you have to go through like 5 different menus and then find whatever attachment you want. Go ahead and click that on the weapon. It's a whole mess. It takes way too long, and I hate it. And I don't know. Nikon, take over Call of Duty, please, because it'd be so much faster, so much easier if you did. Activision, just learn a thing or two from Nikon about just basic menu systems. Just do that, and then your games would be 10 times better. Anyways, enough ranting about video games. I am done. I'm cool. I'm chill. Back to the Z30, this small camera is so small because it doesn't have an EVF, which is definitely the biggest elephant in the room. A lot of photographers love it. A lot of photographers hate it. My opinion, I personally do not care about an EVF or a viewfinder of any kind, especially nowadays with the high quality resolutions that we have on the back of the cameras with the monitors. I don't really personally have a need for an EVF on a camera, especially since I wear glasses. Using an EVF with glasses was never my favorite thing because for some reason I would always just constantly bump my glasses with the viewfinder on the back of the camera, end up smudging my glasses, end up not getting correct focusing, whatever it was just very annoying. And the Z30 just takes away that option completely, which honestly I'm fine with. But I also understand where a lot of photographers are coming from with still wanting an EVF. Really, an EVF now is just personal choice, and it kind of just depends on how you learn photography. When I was first learning photography, it was with SLRs and rangefinders, and I didn't have an option for a screen on the back of the camera. So I was forced to use a viewfinder. And now that we have the luxury of a monitor on the back of the camera that is very good quality, really it's up to you on which one you want to use. I'm in favor of getting rid of the EVF on the Z30 because it helps with the size in general. It makes the camera more compact and easier to store in a bag or a small purse or even your jacket pocket. Along with the collapsible kit lens, this camera is extremely small, and I'm a big fan of that factor. It's also a little more discreet too when you're doing street photography, that you don't have to bring the camera up to your eye just to take a picture. You can instead flip the monitor out and keep it about waist level, and that way it draws less attention to you. There's pros and cons, of course, to having a viewfinder on a camera, and I'm sure the internet will debate that until the very end of time. But I'm a fan of it, and I don't really care if I have an EVF on a camera nowadays anyway. Not gonna lie, it took me a while to kind of find a few things about this camera that I did not like. But don't worry, I'm not entirely based. There are definitely a few things about this camera that I would change. Number one, and the biggest reason that this camera is not my main camera in my kit bag, is because there's only one SD slot. Doing professional photos and events, having 2 SD slots is really kind of necessary, with having that second slot as being a backup just in case anything happens to your first and primary SD card. It hasn't happened to me, but I've heard a ton of horror stories where photographers with cameras that only have one slot have shot like weddings or big events or very important events, gotten home, and something happens to the card, like it becomes corrupt or the files are just not there anymore. Something happens, I don't know. It hasn't happened to me, luckily, knock on wood, but having 2 slots in general is just very important for both peace of mind and ensuring that you're going to have the perfect photos every single time and nothing will ever happen to them. Unless you drop the camera out of a plane or down a mountain or something wild like that. Try not to do that though. The second thing that I do not like about this camera at all is the battery life. Granted, I bought this camera secondhand and the battery it came with was the original battery that Nikon put with it. And by all means, the battery could have just been old and bad. But when I took this camera out the first couple of times, I didn't even get past like 20 minutes of shooting before the battery went from full to almost completely empty, even though I was just shooting photos. That to me is just completely unacceptable, especially for a camera that costs more than like $300. But luckily, in the beautiful world of the 21st century, we have third-party accessories for any type of camera that you're looking at. And with that, I bought a pack of third-party batteries, and the difference is night and day. Now I can shoot photos all day long and not worry about the battery life. Of course, there are always risks when you're buying third-party accessories, especially batteries, but just do a little bit of research, look at reviews and stuff, and make sure you're getting a good quality product and you shouldn't have any issues. Don't go on Temu and buy random batteries that you think are going to last 5 years. Nope, they'll probably explode in your camera body and maybe start a forest fire. Don't do that. But all in all, I'm extremely happy with this camera. Just those two things, mainly just the one SD slot, is just keeping this camera back from being my main camera in my kit. Which is wild because this camera is not really that expensive compared to the other Z-line cameras. Dare I say this camera is nearly perfect? Of course not. There's no such thing as a perfect camera, and there never will be. But who would this camera benefit the most? When this camera launched, Nikon focused on advertising it to content creators who are just getting into the game. And for that, I can see where they're coming from. This camera is extremely easy to use. You don't even have to worry about a lot of the settings. And it's kind of a run and gun type camera. So for content creators, videographers, or photographers, just in general, looking for an easy to use camera that they don't have to worry about a lot on, this camera is a really great option for you. I also think that the Z30 is just a fantastic option as a backup in anyone's camera bag. At any skill level, any years of experience, this camera is just a really good camera, and I wish it got more love than it currently does get. It kind of gets pushed into the shadows by other cameras in the Z lineup like the FC or the Z50 now, but the Z30 feels like an extremely powerful underdog. As of right now, I don't plan on getting rid of this camera at all. I absolutely love having it in my camera bag, and I arguably use it more than my Z5, which is kind of surprising because my Z5 has always been my one go-to workhorse camera. I think really it's just easier to use, and the size definitely helps in that respect. I know a lot of people now go for either the Z50 or the ZFC, which they're both very good cameras as well, but the Z30 may just be a very good sweet spot for a lot of people. So let me know in the comments what you think of the Nikon Z30. Do you love that it doesn't have an EVF, or do you absolutely hate it and think that this camera should not exist because of it? Also, let me know which camera you're mainly running in your camera bag. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and if you found this video at all entertaining, or even if you learned something today. Be kind to each other, and until next time, deuces everybody.